All right, hello everyone. Olivia Reiner here, joined by Ryan Wood, and you are watching Packers post-practice chat. We are rapidly approaching the Packers home opener against the Minnesota Vikings, and it's been, a week after a win. Guys are in the locker room, guys are willing to chat, but there's always injuries, stuff going on, and we'll get to the injury report in just a second. But of note today, David Bakhtiari did not participate in practice at all. He's listed with a back injury. The question is, though, how serious is that back injury, and will it impact if he's able to play on Sunday?
It is the question. He played last Thursday, a week ago today. It's been a while. I'd be really surprised if he didn't play. Matt LaFleur was asked about that injury, and he just declined to answer the question today. That could be seen maybe as some gamesmanship and maybe trying to not reveal too much to the Vikings, who obviously are watching as well. So I'd be really surprised. But it's a little too close to comfort, too, because after Bakhtiari and Balaga, who is the third tackle? I mean, Alex Light was not active on last week, so who is the third? I mean, it really gets into the configurations of the offensive line if Bakhtiari was not able to play. Not just the fact that he's their best lineman, but they need to keep the rest of the line intact as well.
And fortunate for the Packers, Alex Light he was not active for the game. Fortunately for the Packers, David Bakhtiari did not get injured in the game against
that we
the
know
Bears,
of.
that
yeah.
we know of. He didn't leave the game for
Right.
any reason. Who would have backed up Bakhtiari had anything happened?
We don't know. But I'll give you this little hint. Look at PackersNews.com a little bit later, because our Tom Silverstein was on that hunt today, so look for that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because I saw Tom speak to Alex Light in the locker room today, so I'm curious to know what exactly happened, because Light being out last week was a bit of a surprise too, because he wasn't listed as any sort of limited on the injury report on Friday leading up to the game, on Tuesday leading up to the game.
Yeah.
So anyway, interesting. So let's take a look at the injury report before I say hello to you guys over on Facebook in our comments. Jair Alexander was limited today in practice. He's listed with a knee injury. As we mentioned, David Bakhtiari did not participate. And the only other change from yesterday was Tremonton Williams was limited yesterday with just veteran rest, and he was back at full participation today. So, Jair Alexander, limited participant due to a knee, something going on there. That's a big part of the Packers defense right there, and we'll see exactly what his Friday participation status is. We'll see if this is sort of a precautionary thing or if there's something more to it tomorrow.
Limited would seem to suggest, he was able to do some parts of the padded practice today, so it would seem to suggest that's precautionary, but big thing with any of those injuries is how a guy progresses through the week. So, like you said, we'll have to see.
All right, let's take a look at our comments. Hello, everybody. Dale, were you the one who asked? Yeah, somebody asked yesterday, Jim and I. Ryan, you were not here, obviously, for this, but somebody asked Jim and I about the practice squad yesterday and if they were planning on, or if they were looking to fill that open roster spot. And it wasn't something that we had thought about. And lo and behold, the Packers went and filled the practice squad spot today. They added, I believe his name is, this is going to be a big test of mine, Ben Braden.
Yes.
A guard. I believe that's correct. I think he went to the University of Michigan. I think I read the press release. I did not read the press release very well because when I initially tweeted it out, I said that he was a center, but the letters C and G look very similar in my defense. So
Kind of.
No, they do.
There's a difference.
They do.
But the curvature is
Pretty
there.
sure I am fine. It's okay. But anyway, he was at practice today. He's there. So I saw him, number 71. He's out there. So Dale had just asked if any word on the open practice squad spot, and it is now filled. So yes, let's see what else we got. Marcel is from Germany. Good to see you again. Let's see. Yeah, so Josh says they're going to game plan for David Bakhtiari. Either way, hiding these injuries across the league is so dumb. And to that, I would say I agree.
Yeah, if that is in fact their intent or their goal, which we don't know, but if it is, they're not going to fool anybody.
John says, just so I'm clear, is it okay? It's okay to do the defense when the Packers are on. Excuse me, that did not come out correctly. It's okay to do the wave when the Packers are on defense. And to that, I would say, if you're Aaron Rodgers, yes, that is when you should do the wave.
I mean, I don't care when you do the wave because, whatever. But Aaron Rodgers doesn't want you to do the wave unless they're on defense. And it does make sense logically because you want as little noise as possible when the Packers are on offense. So that's a big bugaboo with the quarterback. He does not like that. If you want to please the quarterback, don't do it.
Another thing that he said was that he doesn't like hearing when fans say that other fans have told each other to sit down when they're standing. So
did he say that? I missed that.
He did say that, yes.
Well, I know I was at the Billy Joel concert a couple years ago, and we were told to sit down, and it's like, why do you go to a concert? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. It's just you struck a nerve, Olivia.
Peter, who is from Czech Republic, good to hear from you again. He asks, what do you think of the Packers' offensive line against the D-line of the Vikings? He did not like the way that the interior of the offensive line played against the Bears. We talk about this quite a bit. You asked, I believe it was Mike Pettin today, about Nathaniel Hackett, thank you. How much of it is the Bears' fantastic defense and how much of it is the Packers' offensive line?
Well, the Packers' interior offensive line has looked pretty good for the last couple of years. They didn't get bad overnight. You've seen one game sample size, and that game happened to be against probably the best defensive front in the entire league. So I think it's a lot about the Bears. With that said, the Vikings aren't far behind. I mean, this Vikings defensive front might be top 5. It's really good. And, oh, by the way, Von Miller comes next week and Fletcher Cox the week after that. So it doesn't get a whole lot easier. They're really tested. And anyone that saw the schedule in April, I think when you saw it and you really went game by game, you're like, wow, there's some real tests for this offense, but especially the offensive line early in the season. The good news they have is that the next 3 games, unlike last week, are all at home. So they don't have to deal with the hostile crowd, which I've been going to Soldier Field since 2014, my 6th trip there. Last week was the loudest I'd ever heard Soldier Field. It was legitimately loud, and NFL's smallest stadium. It hasn't always been that way. It was loud last week. The whole NFL opener and all that played a part too. Not just facing the Bears defensive front, that's very good, but being on the road at night, all those things. So being at home should help, but there's some tough tests for this offensive line coming forward.
Paul says that he would start Elton Jenkins over Lane Taylor at left guard. When will the Packers use Elton Jenkins? Is it too early to pass judgment? We talk about it's been 1 game.
Yes.
Is it too early to pass judgment
Yes.
and switch up what they're doing there
Yes.
inside? A
rookie's not doing any better in that situation, at least in my opinion. A rookie's not doing any better in that situation than Lane Taylor did. Boy, you talk about being thrown to the wolves a little bit. That would have been pretty fierce. Now, with that said, Corey Linsley did show pretty well for himself back in 2014 in his first game in the NFL opener in Seattle. But that's just, it's really rare for that to happen. So they're not going to make any snap judgments based off 1 game, especially that type of game. The bottom line is that Lane Taylor was chosen to be the starter off his body of work in the offseason and training camp over Elton Jenkins in 1 game against probably the best defensive front in the league at night on the road is not going to change that.
So Nolan wants to know, once Aaron Rodgers clicks with the new offense, will we be seeing more deep balls thrown? What will the offense look like when Aaron Rodgers is fully comfortable and confident? We don't know. We haven't obviously seen him in the offense very much at all.
Certainly not fully comfortable and confident in the offense either, because it was literally the first time. So, he's going to be more comfortable and confident week 11 than he is week 1. So we really don't know. I mean, that's really it's a great intrigue of this season is what will the offense look like. Matt LaFleur's kind of hinted at this too, is this thing's coming together and they're trying to form their identity. They're not trying to do what the Rams do or what the 49ers do. It's not a McVay or a Shanahan. It's very much a LaFleur and Rodgers offense, and they're kind of figuring it out themselves too. I think they have an idea of what they want to be, but all good plans from the offseason can go to waste in the fall. I mean, you have to be true to what you are, and you have to determine and really understand and figure out what you are early in the season, especially when you're with the new offense. So that's where they're at. And it's not going to be overnight. It's not going to be a week or two thing. It's going to develop over time.
Mike wants to know, how important is getting a win this week when it comes to the Packers winning the division? Well, they're playing a division opponent. They are playing at home. You would think that, hey, if you're going to win a game, if you're trying to win the division, this is probably one you want to win.
Well, you want to win your home division games if you want to win the division. Obviously, that's important. But even bigger than that in a way is I thought they'd be 1-1 through 2 games. They have a chance to go 2-0 through 2 games. I didn't think they were going to go to Chicago and win. They did. They proved a lot of people wrong, myself included. So you don't want to take a step back after that. You want to build on that momentum. A loss this week, they're kind of right back to where a lot of people thought they would be anyway. Instead of, there's just such a huge difference being 2-0, facing your top 2 competitors in the division right off the bat and winning both of those games, one of them on the road. It's a huge difference.
So Francesco wants to know if we have any news about Darius Shepard's injury. He did not participate the last couple practices due to a hamstring.
Back to last week, yeah.
So if this is any good news at all, he's been stretching with the team, which he was not doing last week. So if there's any progress in that, perhaps. But he points out that he thinks that Shepard could be an upgrade over Allison in the slot. I don't know. What do you see in Darius Shepard's skill set as a receiver? Have you seen anything in the preseason games?
Yeah, a lot of people are probably going to count out Geronimo Allison off one game because he didn't get any targets. But the body of work that we have seen going back the past few years, not just last year when he had a pretty good first 5 games before going on IR, but really the past few years, he has been a trusted receiver. I don't think that changes so quickly.
Mm-hmm. Jim and I talked about this yesterday, but someone had asked us, behind Davante Adams, who is the second receiver? Who's the next breakout receiver? How much of this offense is not dependent on the number 2 guy? You know, the guys that are going to get targeted, it's just going to be more democratic. It's going to be more spread evenly. Do you buy into that idea from what we've seen of the offense so far?
Every defense that they face all season is going to have the goal of taking away Davante Adams. That is going to be the defensive game plan. Take away Davante Adams and don't let Aaron Jones break off big runs. That's basically, and that's what the Bears did, and it's a big reason the Bears had so much success against this Packers offense. So, yeah, figuring out who that number 2 is, and not only number 2, number 3, to fill out when they're in the 11 personnel, that's important. And I think that you've seen Marquez Valdes-Scantling as a potential deep threat, not just with the 47-yard catch. That was the lone big play for either side last week. But the fact that he had, I think, 4 or 5 games with a 40-yard reception as a rookie. He's shown that he's got the size, he's got the speed, he's shown that ability. That helps take the top off the defense. And then Geronimo Allison is a guy who he's played well in the past. He didn't do much in week 1, but he's done quite a bit for a guy who's had to come up from being undrafted all the way to making a role for himself in this offense. I don't think that goes away in 1 week. So those guys are going to be important because as much as Aaron Rodgers would love to just chuck it to Davante Adams for every right reason there is, every defense knows that, and they're going to be scheming and rolling coverages to take him away.
Going back to Geronimo Allison, Justin wants to know, Geronimo was on the field for 30 snaps. He obviously wasn't targeted at all. How much of that is the Bears' defense, or how much of it is just figuring out the new offense?
It's tough to say on such a small sample size. If he goes off this week, then you can say it's the Bears' defense. If he doesn't, then you could probably say that they're throwing the ball elsewhere. So it's a tough question off 1 week. That's something we'll have a better idea of when the sample size grows.
We'll take a couple more questions from you guys here. Marcel wants to know, what will be the bigger problem for the Packers to face, the run game of the Vikings or the pass game? What will they have to focus more on limiting this upcoming week here at home?
Who asked that question?
This is Marcel.
Marcel?
Who's from Germany.
From Germany. Make sure you read today because this is literally what I'm writing about today. if you've watched the Packers-Vikings over the past few years, you know that Thielen and Diggs have had their day. I mean, both of those guys have torched this secondary. So it was surprising to me that every single person, from defensive coordinator Mike Pettin on down, every single person has said, it starts with Cook. You have to stop Dalvin Cook in that run game. And the reason, there's a couple reasons. One, Dalvin Cook's really good. When he's healthy, he's an elite back. I mean, that's what Matt LaFleur called him this week. He's that type of a playmaker. But even more than that, when he's going, you get that play action going. And unlike the Bears, the Vikings have a quarterback that can deliver the football. And you got some receivers on the outside that when your defense cheats up to stop that run, if it can't stop the run, it needs to cheat up. All of a sudden, you're susceptible to the deep pass down the field. So it really does start there, and I find that interesting just because Thielen and Diggs have had big games here, but they want to make it one-dimensional. They want to stop the run.
Mm-hmm. So when you think of Cook, you think of a guy who's obviously very fast, but how important is it for them to be able to sort of cut off the edge a little bit more in this upcoming game?
Well, Mike Pettin talked about that today, how they need to set a hard edge and funnel everything back to the middle of the field. That's where your extra help is as far as the defense goes, your defenders. So with that said, though, it's a balancing act because Dalvin Cook is a downhill runner. He's got speed for the perimeter, but he can also run downhill and break tackles and pick up those 4 or 5 yard chunks to keep the chains moving. So they've got to be sound with their gap integrity, but part of that is setting that hard edge and funneling things to the middle of the field. So, yeah, it's not just stopping the run, it's how they stop the run and making sure that they're protected against both the outside and the interior.
We'll take one last question here from Mike. He thinks that Darnell Savage Jr. had a very good game last week. I would agree with him. He looked very fast out there. Jim and I talked, I believe it was Jim and I. We do so many of these, I feel like I start to forget who I'm talking to.
I'm Ryan.
This is Ryan, yes.
Hello.
But Jim and I were talking yesterday about this, and you really get to see, not just Savage in this isolated combine, doing his 40, but you got to see him out there on the field and actually put that to the test. And Mike Pettin spoke about Savage quite extensively today and was very complimentary of the young safety and how he prepared for the game, that he wasn't worried about the rookie's nerves. What did you see out of Savage on Thursday?
Speed, a lot of speed, and not only that, but composure. Because Mike Pettin, you're right, he praised him today. He said that's a guy as a rookie, he was not worried about going out into week one in that environment, real, bright lights, and it's a big stage for a guy who'd never played at this level before. So he showed that. Not only did he make plays, but he didn't blow plays either, and that's huge when you're the back end, the last line of defense. You guys seen this Packers defense over and over again over the last few years. How many blown coverages have there been deep middle of the field, especially last year? You didn't see that from Darnell Savage Jr. He's a guy that not just has the playmaking ability and the speed, but as a rookie, he's got his head on his shoulders right. He's been consistent and steady, and that's important. That's really important from the safety position.
All right, you guys, I think that's going to do it for us today. We'll be back tomorrow, Ryan and I, at practice, so we'll be here to chat with you guys and break things down. And as always, on Sunday, we will be live before and after the game. Ryan will be with us after the game.
Yes.
Ryan's going to be on quite a bit. Hopefully you don't mind. Hopefully you like Ryan.
I haven't broke the camera yet, so we're okay.
Any final parting words?
No, I'm good.
Hopefully the weather is better where you are.
That was profound, wasn't it? No, I'm good. That's my parting words.
Yeah, I don't know. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day.